feel, where basically the only time that time slows down is when you pull up the menu to conduct or to select special attacks, magic attacks, use items, and things like that. Otherwise, it is basically playing out in real time. After that, the demo itself actually plays from the very beginning of the game. You see the opening cinematic with Aerith and the now iconic scene where she's kind of kneeling down next to a broken Mako or Mako, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I'm going to say Mako, but down next to a broken, leaking Mako pipe. She seems to maybe praying or doing something along those lines. She ends up hearing something down at the end of the alley. She turns and walks the other way scared, and that's kind of when the camera pans back and pulls out and you kind of see the entirety of Midgar itself. And then you get the, again, the now iconic train sequence where Cloud is riding on top of the train into the station for Mako Reactor number 1, and that's where you pick up the controller and play from there, just like in the 97 original. First thing that I noticed is how beautiful the game is. It is unbelievably gorgeous. The amount of detail in not only the environments, but the character models, the animations. Everything is just so thoughtfully placed and put together. It obviously speaks to the AAA quality that Square Enix is trying to go for. The battle system this time around is obviously much more action focused. The majority of your standard attacks are going to be handled with either mashing on or holding down the square button. With Cloud, for example, it just unleashes a quick flurry of sword strikes, or if you hold it down, he'll do a couple quick sword strikes and then kind of come down with a stronger final blow. And to use any type of menu-based action, whether that's a special attack like Braver, you want to use a magic attack, or you want to use an item, you have to fill up your ATB gauge, which is displayed below your HP. You have it's divided into two little segments, and only by using your standard attack with Square are you able to fill that ATB gauge up faster, and thus allowing you to use those commands faster. It's a very novel way to kind of keep the ATB system from the original, but just update it in a more, and again, make it fit into a more action RPG focus. And I applaud Square because it seems to work really well. There were times where I wanted to, just out of habit, pull up the menu at any given moment, but the options were grayed out because I hadn't filled up the ATB bar yet. So it does make you think on your feet, quite literally. Use a potion because your HP is low. Well, you need to either wait it out, which takes a lot longer if you're just kind of standing in the background waiting for it to fill up on its own, or you kind of have to, a little bit of risk and reward where you have to rush in, get a couple quick hits, hoping that you don't get hit in return before that bar fills up. That way you can use that potion on yourself to keep the battle going. Now you do have dodge button, or dodge roll I should say, with the circle button, and then R1 is your block, which obviously will minimize the damage. But yeah, it seems to be really well thought out. It controls really well in battles, at least in the demo. I didn't have any issues as far as like the camera getting caught on the environment or getting too close or pulling too far back. Everything for the most part seemed to work out pretty well. So we all know that third-person action games, especially fast-moving ones, even think Kingdom Hearts, which is another Square Enix game, sometimes had trouble with the camera if things got too frenetic and too frantic. So far, everything seems good on here, so thumbs up Square Enix on that one. Most of the regular enemy fodder in the beginning of the game can basically be defeated by just holding down the square button. mashing the square button. There's no real strategy to that. Now, as you get deeper into the demo towards like the ending, things do change quite a bit, because if you play it just like a Devil May Cry or an action, hack and slash game, you're going to get your ass handed to you like I did. And it's not fun, and I had to readjust my strategy to kind of figure out exactly what I was doing wrong. So it is a game that will punish you if you're not being strategic, which I really appreciate, even though it took me a little bit to kind of, wrap my mind around it. For example, in the Sentinel Scorpion boss battle at the very end, he has a... he starts out with some missile attacks and some laser attacks, some electricity-based attacks, things like that. Kind of wear him down with your normal hacks and slashes, and you have Barrett using his gun arm. But then basically phase 2 of the boss battle, he puts up basically a force field that nullifies all of your standard physical-based attacks. So, you have to wear it down with Barrett. At least in my playthrough, Barrett had the lightning materia attached, so he was the one casting lightning. And then at that point, it shows on the back of the enemy that there is a weak point. So it again is very strategic. So you not only have to worry about your enemy placement or your relation to the enemy placement, but also placing yourself in the actual battlefield to expose those weak points and be able to attack them to be successful. Speaking of finding strategic weak points and things like that and using strategy, you also have the ability to stagger an enemy, which is not new to video games, but it is cool that Square Enix is, again, just adding these little layers and these little touches to a game that we all know so well, just to kind of keep things fresh and hopefully be able to keep it interesting over the course of an entire game. And while I loved everything for the most part about this title, it wasn't all great though. And again, this is obviously a personal opinion, but I just do not like the direction that they are taking the Barrett character in. Obviously, he is supposed to be brash and over the top, and that was fine in the 97 original when there was no voice acting. You're basically reading the dialogue in your mind, in your head, and it was up to the player to interpret how he sounded. And in this one, the interpretation, and it's through no real fault of the voice actor, you have to imagine he's taking obviously instruction from the director and the producer, but I just don't like his way over the top line delivery, and it's almost like a caricature of himself, and it reminds me of like a really bad anime where it's so melodramatic that it's cringeworthy. And again, it's a personal choice. Some people I've seen really like it, so obviously it'll be up to, just like everything else, it'll be up to you guys to decide whether you enjoy it or not. But I don't know, obviously over the course of the entire game, if I'll get used to it or I'll end up turning a corner and actually enjoying it. But just hearing this character speak basically for the first time, it really just it was a little off-putting. This is going to be the final interpretation of the character though, so it was just, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
This pump's sole purpose is to drain the planet dry. While you sleep, while you eat, while you shit, it's here sucking up Mako. It doesn't rest and it doesn't care. You do realize what Mako is, don't you? Mako is the lifeblood of our world. The planet bleeds green like you and me bleed red. The hell you think's gonna happen when it's all gone, huh? Answer me!
Overall, though, I am super excited about this title. If the demo is anything to go by, we are going to have a very well-made, beautiful, competent remake of a beloved RPG classic. I do still have some questions, though. What is the overall length of the game going to be? What is the release schedule for parts 2 and 3 and possibly 4? Is it going to be able to fit on the PS4 generation before it becomes defunct? Or even the PS5 generation 5, 6, 7 years from now? Obviously, those things can't be answered right away, and it's not really at the fault of part 1 itself, but those are questions that, fans will have moving forward once this game does release. So let me know what you think. Does this demo get you even more excited for the final game? Did it kind of raise your hype level and expectations? Did it kind of damper it? Is it what you were looking for? Do you like, the action RPG focus of this remake? There are so many questions. I would love to have a discussion with all of you, so drop any comments down below, or you can tweet at me at SavePointJosh. Give this video a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Please check out our other content. Until next time, you guys stay safe.
It's over!
That's my line.